Well, if you haven't heard, Nvidia is going to be reporting earnings after the bell today. Our next guest out with a new note saying the company's path to a $4 trillion market capitalization begins today with, quote, another drop-the-mic performance. He also thinks tech stock will continue to rally into year-end. If you haven't figured it out, he is Dan Ives, Wedbush Securities Global Head of Technology Research. Has a buy rating on Nvidia. Price target's 200. Why is it going to be a drop-the-mic quarter?
I think right now, demand to supply is 15 to 1. And, they're the only game in town. And from all of our Asia trips that we talked about here on the show, it is just the beginning of this AI revolution. And I think as you start to see with Blackwell, Street's still underestimating what this is going to do as all the hyperscalers start to build out that AI CapEx at the top of that mountain. It's the godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia. And I think that's why tonight, it's going to be a drop the mic, get the popcorn out quarter.
Is it going to be from the numbers reported, or is it going to also be from the commentary around guidance?
Well, I think especially guidance, because Blackwell, when you look, we could be looking at a trajectory 20, 25, 30 billion a year, right? And if you look at how the street sort of modeled this, I think still massively underestimated in terms of where this go over the next year or two. Look, because my view is the big question is when could this get to 200 billion of annual revenue? And I think they continue to underestimate what Nvidia and what this AI spending, this tidal wave is going to do, not just for big tech, but especially with Nvidia. And that's why when Jensen speaks, everyone listens. But it just shows what's coming second, third,
How hard is it to figure this out? We kind of have a sense for what all the hyperscalers, the main customers, are going to spend. They've told us in terms of their own commentary. Why is this a mystery?
Because I think many continue, whether it's Blackwell delays, worries about technology, over-ordering, it's about the 2 and 2 model. 2 billion beat, 2 billion in terms of guidance raise. And I think when you trajectory this out, this eventually is a company, at first you're talking about dollar earnings, now you're like, could it be $5, $6 out year earnings? But it also just shows for broader tech. Still, 9:30, 10 p.m. in the AI party that I think goes to 4 a.m. And that's why I think big tech, we're looking at NASDAQ, not just 20,000 in the next few years, especially with Trump and what I view deregulation. This is just very bullish for the tech trade.
You're referring to the average revenue beat last few quarters is about $2 billion. Some argue that it might not be as much this time. If that happens, would the price get punished?
It could a little, but I still think 2 and 2 in terms of the model. But it's also about Blackwell, in terms of what that could look like over the next few quarters. And it just goes back to 3 months ago. And the initial reaction, stocks down, bears all come out of hibernation mode in their spreadsheets. This is up 17% since the watch party. So as we continue to head in, I think we talk about $4 trillion. I think over the next 12, 18 months, besides them and Apple and others, we're going to be talking eventually about $5 trillion market caps in tech as this fourth industrial revolution plays out.
You said that nobody's even close in terms of competition. Does that dynamic change in 2025?
Look, I think AMD obviously trying to sort of get around the corner. Others will start to ultimately, there's some private companies you're going to see a lot of funding in terms of trying to find who could ultimately be in this race. But they continue to be in the left lane, Bugatti going 90 miles an hour, everyone else in a minivan going 35 miles an hour. And that's why when I look at the stock, this is not expensive. It just continues to be my view that the street underestimates where it can go and where growth can go. And that's why tonight, I think there's just another indication where this AI spending trend is.
Well, we'll be watching. Obviously, the largest market cap company on the planet after the bell. Dan, thank you.
Yeah.
This week in the stock market is nothing short of exhilarating. The leading player in the AI revolution, Nvidia, has once again captivated the financial world with yet another remarkable quarterly performance. Dubbed by tech analysts as a turning point for artificial intelligence, Nvidia's recent results have gone beyond just numbers, sparking predictions of a technological upheaval on a global scale. Renowned for its pioneering work in AI technologies, Nvidia's latest report is turning heads and raising eyebrows as many try to grasp the full extent of its implications. Notably, the company's CEO, Jensen Huang, is being hailed as a visionary leader, paving the way for what some describe as the fourth revolution. But what does this really mean for the tech sector and investors worldwide? Gather around as we unravel the story behind Nvidia's extraordinary moment and the profound impact of its groundbreaking advancements. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy.
because it is all about counting down to Nvidia today. Shares up 14% in the last 3 months. The options market is implying an 8.5% swing in either direction post-earnings. You want to tell me what your own expectations are for this ultra-important report?
Well, I think it's critically important for the market, as you've already described it, just from the perspective of we've got this entrenched bullish momentum and the expectation that you could have an end-of-year rally. And I think if there's one variable that can defeat that premise, that could actually halt the end-of-year rally, it's Nvidia's earnings tonight. And it's a disappointment. And it's a disappointment on the upcoming quarter that ends in January, and seeing that figure come in light of the $37 billion. I actually think they probably need to do $40 billion to get the excitement in the stock and exceed a lot of the expectations. And I also think there's a tertiary effect, Scott, on the entire semiconductor industry. Let's understand something. The SMH is down basically 14% from its July high, and that's with Nvidia being 24% weighting of that ETF. So I think it's critically important to kind of restart the semiconductor industry momentum, which appears to be broken right now everywhere except Nvidia itself.
Steve Weiss, Bespoke, says today, since the start of 2020, Nvidia has reported an earnings triple play. That's an EPS beat, a rev beat. They raised guidance on 15 of their 19 reports. Dan Ives, of course, the star analyst over at Wedbush today, says expect another mic drop performance. Drop the mic performance. Is that how you see it?
Well, yes and no. I think it's important to understand what the company's stock did, what the shares did in the aftermath of those quarters. In fact, they have beat them all, but yet the stock sold off in a few of them because there's a whisper number, which Joe is sort of alluding to there. You know, from my standpoint, the way I look at it is I don't expect a big beat. I don't expect a big miss. Neither missing or beating slightly is out of the question, of course. What I'm looking for and what I'm keying on, which will last more than a day, is what demand is. They'll talk about demand, and that's going to be critical. Now, having said that, if they do miss, of course, in the whole tech complex, there's a knee-jerk reaction down. However, I think that could be a buying opportunity, depending on how far it goes down. But overall, I'm expecting demand to be ratified. We see that across the AI complex, and that the evolution, is still the biggest uptake in spending in any technology that anyone can remember, including cloud, including web, including everything. And that's going to continue. And ultimately, that's all you have to be concerned about.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, though, Weiss, this is not a demand story at this point, right? It's a supply story. Right. How quickly can they get these new chips to market and, serve them up to the hyperscalers who are paying for them? On that note, Ives continues today, Joe, in his look ahead to the earnings. He says, we continue to estimate for every $1 spent on an NVIDIA GPU, there's an $8 to $10 multiplier across the tech sector, which speaks to their firmly bullish view of tech stocks for 2025. In other words, it's this rising tide that will continue to lift all boats.
You know what, Scott? I have to tell you, I'm somewhat skeptical on that because I don't know that we've seen that effect. It seems as though more recently we're seeing a narrowing in terms of what the performance looks like for technology companies overall. You've got, as I said before, a lot of semiconductor names that are struggling, some software names that are struggling in this environment as well. So I think after this report and as we move into 2025, I'd like to see what Dan is talking about, maybe broaden out a little bit. It's certainly, if we see a continuation of the Amazon, the Alphabet, the Microsoft continuing to spend to the degree that they have been spending, I think the opportunity is there. But I don't know. I'm somewhat skeptical of what he's suggesting.
NVIDIA's financial performance recently took center stage once again, surprising even the most optimistic analysts. When the company reported its third quarter revenue of $35.1 billion, a whopping 94% increase year over year, the tech world sat up and took notice. Wall Street had anticipated impressive numbers, but NVIDIA's actual figures surpassed all expectations, utterly demolishing the consensus estimate of $33.12 billion. The focus on their AI technology and the consequential revenue seems not just a coincidence, but a meticulously crafted path to industry dominance. Dan Ives from Wedbush Securities portrayed NVIDIA's results as a jaw-dropper, noting the transformative power of NVIDIA's AI technology. In a moment drenched with optimism, he predicted a NASDAQ surge to 25,000 points, driven by what he calls the technology revolution sweeping the globe. The analyst emphasized that every dollar spent on NVIDIA's GPU chips translates to an extensive $8 to $10 impact across the tech sector, potentially sparking an economic ripple effect unlike anything seen before. NVIDIA's Blackwell product line, essential to its AI chip development efforts, has emerged as a game changer, being in full production mode as we speak. Analysts assert that the company's impressive earnings report indicates not just a prosperous present, but an even more lucrative future as the demand for AI technologies grows exponentially in the coming 12 to 18 months. However, amidst this prosperity, there lies an element of risk, notably the market's initial apprehensions about high operational costs and profitability margins. But before we go any further, if you want to keep up with NVIDIA's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates.
Josh, it's one of your largest positions. I'm trying to figure out what the knock, if anything, would be on the story, even if it's a good one. If it's the fact that the magnitude, if you will, of the beat has been shrinking, it's hard to find any negatives in this story. How do you see it going into the print?
I'm going to tell you what the number one potential negative might be. And I don't know if it's going to come up during the prepared remarks or if one of the first analysts in the Q&A portion decide to bring it up. But it's going to come up, and the answer to this issue is going to be, I think, one of the most important aspects of what gets discussed. There were reports over the last couple of days that NVIDIA had several times had to go back to the supplier of the racks for Blackwell graphics processing units because of overheating issues when these chips were connected together for custom builds. This is really important. Custom builds are the highest margin thing that happens in AI right now. So you have this issue. You have server racks that are designed to hold up to 72 chips, and there are reports that some of these, we've had reports of overheating. Now, in the last day or so, people have come out and said, no, that's already been resolved. That was months ago. Don't worry about it. That's no longer an issue. Okay, great. But it's still in the backs of people's minds. And I think if and when that comes up, that is what investors will be hanging on. Is Blackwell's launch problematic, or is it all systems go? None of us on a show about stock trading have an edge on this. This is engineering stuff. I choose to believe that NVIDIA is good enough to have resolved that issue, but the way they answer questions about it is going to be very telling to the street.
How big does the guide have to be at this point?
Well, I think the guide has to be up. I don't know how the magnitude, but if you look, Jensen Huang said Blackwell demand, here's the word he used, not my word, although I use this word. Insane. So you have to have a guide up that matches with that kind of terminology, right? So that is a secondary risk here, is if the guide up isn't big enough. And I want people to realize, and I'm sure people do realize, this is a company that over the last 12 months, if they hit the forecast that we're expecting, will have seen profits of over $60 billion. Not revenue, profits. That's a 15-fold increase since January of 2023. So it's really tough to keep people as excited as they have been, and it's really tough to keep ratcheting up guidance to that extent. So I don't know if it has to be the biggest guide up they've ever done, but it probably has to match the term insane. And I agree, Scott, that's another big factor that will decide whether we get red or green after the print.
Well, you'll be with us tomorrow. I appreciate you calling in. You'll be with us tomorrow to react to whatever happens tonight, and we'll look forward to that. But I wanted to hear your perspective going in. So, Karen.
The geopolitical landscape also plays a significant role in Nvidia's narrative, especially with tensions surrounding China and potential tariffs forming clouds on the horizon. Interestingly, indirect involvement from figures like Tesla Inc.'s CEO, Elon Musk, in diplomatic efforts is seen as a hopeful alleviation of these tensions, easing investment worries and encouraging confidence among stakeholders. Let's not forget that stock markets can sometimes resemble a playground with their unpredictability and unexpected turns. Take this. Nvidia's stock, after closing at $145.89, faced a decline of 0.76% in regular hours, only to dip further by 2.53% during after-hours trading. Yet, when you zoom out, its year-to-date surge stands at a stunning 202.86%, proving perhaps that the stock market's roller coaster tendencies are more predictable than one might think. As Nvidia rides the wave of AI advancement, it's strengthening segments such as data centers, which posted a record quarterly revenue. The data center business alone witnessed a staggering 112% year-over-year growth. Moreover, Nvidia's ambitious plans include shipping its Blackwell production by the end of fiscal 2026, bringing forth even more innovation and expansion. Jensen hopes for nothing less than a world fully awakened to AI's paramount importance, as industries shift towards adopting AI as a transformative tool. An optimistic outlook echoed in the words of company forecasts, with revenues expected to soar to $37.5 billion, with a potential margin of error as few as 2%. Now, that's the kind of confidence that investors crave, fortified by robust demand despite certain supply constraints. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
So, Carrie, you don't own the stock, but you do own Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta. So this matters to the degree you think that this report tonight impacts the performance of mega caps for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it matters because Nvidia is now the largest capitalization company in the world, and the market is just anticipating breathlessly about this. It's interesting that Joe said 40 is the number. It feels as if every single day that number to beat for next quarter is going higher. So it's a pretty high bar. And if there are manufacturing problems and they don't hit 40, that will take the market down tomorrow or for a few days at least. And the buyers of all these chips talk about what they're doing with AI constantly. It has become the catchword, AI or catch two letters, of this year. 2024, if you look at earnings reports, it's all AI, AI, AI. And if you can't get the chips, that's a problem. And that would be very, very impactful. If you can get the chips, if no manufacturing problems, but they just take the number down somewhat. I mean, if it's not 38, 39, if it's not 40, fine. I don't think the market is going to respond horribly, but I do think the market is going to be very impacted if the number is light on guidance and if manufacturing is the problem. That would affect all of tech.
All right, Nvidia, got to hear from you. You are a longtime holder of the stock. How are you thinking about these earnings tonight?
So the market, I'll tell you the market first. The options market is saying it's going to be up or down about 8.5%. To me, I think the print's going to be great. I wouldn't be excited about any move up or down on the print. It's going to be on the call. And I really feel it's going to be all about Blackwell, Blackwell, Blackwell. And if I listen to Vertiv's call, which I did, they are increasing their guidance on data centers. Microsoft is clearly saying demand far outstrips supply. And we want to hear that as well. And so I think that we have the potential. We're actually going into next year. You know, Blackwell actually starts to reaccelerate, I think, earnings for this. And so that's what you want to see. If we don't see that, you could see that plus 8.6%, be minus 8.6%. But definitely listen to the call in the Q&A.
I mean, we know it's a supply issue. It's not a demand issue, right? Nothing that, I mean, Jensen Huang has already called the demand for these chips insane. So we already know what the story is there. It's whether they can continue to supply these chips or, you know, whether they'll be able to supply these new chips at the pace that Wall Street needs them to, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think, we'll see what the whisper numbers are on the growth or what they say. But I think that we are just still in these early days of spending. And I think it's still hard for us to collectively believe that one company is just dominating this space. And so I think everyone's saying, well, when this is going to stop? When is this going to stop? It's just like there's no data points out there that I've seen that says this is even close to even leveling off. And so I think that, going into the print with Nvidia basically at all-time highs, I think we have this opportunity to push forward that and go to new highs because I just don't see demand waning and supply will ultimately catch up, right? So if they can't meet supply, I think that's a positive for the name.
As we synthesize NVIDIA's stellar performance with the current state of its stock, the narrative is clear. Here lies a company on the brink of a revolutionary impact, not just in technology, but across global industries. NVIDIA's strategic positioning in AI and continued product development align perfectly with the surging interest and demand for AI solutions worldwide. Market trends and data suggest that NVIDIA isn't just participating in the AI race, it's leading it. Forecasts predicting further growth amid NVIDIA's consistent revenue beats paint a promising picture for potential investors, with NVIDIA's stock up over 200% year-to-date and expectations of it reaching higher peaks. Investing in this Silicon Valley powerhouse seems not only prudent but almost inevitable for those looking to harness the extraordinary potential of AI. In conclusion, the conversation surrounding NVIDIA isn't just about numbers. It's about envisioning AI's future, societal impact, and the endless possibilities it brings. What's your take on NVIDIA's journey so far? Do you see yourself riding the AI wave with industry leaders like NVIDIA steering the ship? Share your thoughts and join the conversation as we continue to watch this technological ascent unfold. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like NVIDIA have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen.